So what is the bare minimum we need for a custom block theme? Well, if we look at this, if we refresh the page, we can see we're getting this as an example page. The bare minimum for a theme is style.css that just needs a theme name. It needs an indexed PHP which can be blank, doesn't have to have anything in it, and in future it may not be even part of the setup. Doesn't need a screen.png. So what we can do is we could delete that. And then to display a page, we need the templates folder with a single page called index.html, and the hierarchy sort of follows the same system as in classic themes. So in index.html, notice how I've got this in blocks here. What I'm going to do is remove that and just put some plain HTML. If we come into the site and refresh, we can see we have our base page there. Let's just make this an exclamation mark. And it looks like if we refresh the page, we can basically just write plain HTML. The problem comes when we come to actually edit the site. When we come into this index.html, we will see that we won't get the block. The block has encountered an error. So while we can write HTML in this page, it needs to actually be in the forms of blocks. Hence the original version, where we wrap it in what's effectively a custom block, custom element. If you know anything about web components, it's like our own custom HTML that begins with WP:. It's in a comment so that it doesn't affect the browser, but WordPress parses the index HTML, finds this, sees that it's a paragraph, sees what it's wrapping, and then it can identify what this is. So if we come in here and come back and refresh the page, this is an example page here. And if we come into this here, we see we have templates. We have one here called index because there's only one file at the moment. There are no template parts. And as we progress through the series, we see how we build up these sections. So as we build a theme, we can add more in it. Now, what we can do is if we go into this, we could add, for example, another block. Let's add in a heading. Let's call it a heading 2, and that's what it's going to be there. We'll call it heading 2. We'll save it. And now if we come into, if we can see the visual, we'll look at that in a bit to see the visual code. If we come back in here and refresh the page, we see heading 2 there. If we come into edit site, what we will notice now is we've added a new block. If we come in here and go into templates, we'll see this blue dot. That means it's been changed. We can clear the customization. The most important thing to note is that when you do things in the editor, it doesn't change the static file. This is like our base version. So everything, every time we edit it, in the database gets stored this content and the new content in the actual sort of block. So if we come back here and clear it, say we made some changes and we decided we didn't like it and we've manipulated the template, if we clear that, go into the page, we just see the standard original block, we just see what's in here. So if you're making a theme, you might have all your custom. And if we look at Hansen, for example, if we go into templates and index HTML, we can see what they're doing is they're defining a page with all of these different blocks. The post template, the post title, is it linked? True. The post data, the class name. Whether it's showing the author, showing the avatar, it's false. Show bio, false. If we change them to true here, for example, that become the default template page for our index HTML. And obviously, as we see down here, we have single HTML. That's obviously for a single block post. And you can almost translate post content, group, columns, and so on. So what we're going to do is we won't really be writing grammar like this. We'll be making our own custom blocks and a custom block themes. There are many different ways, but the idea of this particular one is it's a bespoke theme for a client. It's not going to be distributed where people can then edit the theme site. It's not one of those. This is how you would basically change all these different things. As I say, if we look down below, we'll see there's different themes that are creating custom palettes, etc. We'll work with that as we're going on, but we're using the Brad Schiff style approach of kind of creating a custom bespoke theme using our own dynamic blocks, and essentially as if we were just doing it with a WordPress custom theme with our own PHP and CSS and HTML rather than actually using a custom theme and modifying it. So that's the approach we're taking in here, so we can understand what are all these things, what are parts, what's the include folder for. We've got style. When do we use style? When do we use theme.json? When do we use functions? Because more and more whatever's in the functions is getting handled by the theme.json, that if we come down and scroll we see gradients, but typography, a lot of these things, the types of units, they're all getting specified in the theme.json and then getting converted into CSS or theme functions, template parts, styles, and we'll see that as we go on.